Welcome to Overtime, brought to you by KingsCast at www.kingscast.net. I'm Keith Kornelek.
And I'm Chris Kalazewski.
Here we are, Kings fans, back once again in the off-season for another Media Roundtable.
That's right, bringing back some of the brightest minds of the media covering Los Angeles Kings hockey. Excited to share this with you today. Check it out.
Kings have quite a few contracts to deal with this offseason. Does Dean Lombardi look into free agency to improve the team, and what are some options? The mayor.
No, he doesn't look to free agency because he doesn't really have the money to pay his guys right now. He has too many players at the time of this taping. To put together a 23-man roster, he's already over. So there are already guys that are going out. Is he going to go and go after an unrestricted free agent? I mean, really, who is he going to go after as a UFA that's going to make a significant difference to this roster? And Dennis is already itching because he wants to talk about Iginla. In order to do that, you're going to have to move a roster player. And we've talked about this before, Dennis and I before as well on his radio show. The player to move in that scenario, you'd have to move. Justin Williams. Yeah. And the reason why it's Justin Williams is because you have to find a place for Toffoli. Absolutely. And you're better off keeping Toffoli as a right wing than finding a spot for him at left wing. And so to keep him in a top six role on the right wing, you want Carter playing the right side, you don't want him at center. Well, if you have Toffoli as a right wing, that means that Justin Williams has to go. So that's the only scenario that I could see where a UFA gets involved, is where if they move a guy like a Williams to create money to fill, back to your first question, the left wing spot, and you get a guy like Iginla, and Dennis can talk more about that. But other than that, I mean, there's just not a UFA out there that makes a lot of sense.
I go back to the coach and who he's coached before, and a player who can play left wing. He's not maybe can play. I know he would. I mean, people say he didn't perform in Pittsburgh. In the middle of a short season, they traded him to Pittsburgh. I mean, he didn't perform. Big deal, right? I don't discount, Darryl Sutter influence on this roster, because back in the day, before they won the Cup, that game in Chicago when Dustin scored the hat trick, he wanted to trade Dustin Brown. Okay, so those rumors were true, and Tim Lewicki stepped in and said, you're not going anywhere. So I don't discount his influence on the depth chart. And is it going to happen? No, but Bodog put up the Kings as the favorite to get Iginla. What a shock, what a surprise. Could they do it? Could they trade the $3.5 million slot that Williams is in? And John's right, it's not about trading Williams, and people say, oh, he's done a great job, his advanced statistics, all that BS. Where's Tyler Toffoli playing next year? On the left wing, second line, on the third line, right wing? If you want to bring this organization forward and bring in younger, cheaper talent that has the skill, and John was on him first. Do I think he could play with Brown and Kopitar? Absolutely. That's what you do, and then you shore up that part, and you give Iginla. Look, Iginla's not a $7 million player a year anymore. That's the other issue.
Well, hold on, wait. Go ahead. Jesse, how much is Iginla worth?
not $7 million.
But you go to him. You're going to play for Darryl. You can win a cup. We'll give you 7 for 2. Will you come in? Will you take Williams' slot? Is it a better team? Arguably, because it's a better balanced team, because you got better players on the left wing.
But it's also an older team, and it's also a slower team, and that's not what the NHL is geared for. It's a huge concern. You saw what happened in Pittsburgh. Boston just blew by those guys, and you thought, wow, Pittsburgh's loaded. Look at the offensive talent. Look at Iginla and Crosby, Malkin.
4 games.
Exactly. So you bring in a guy like that, now you go, we just got a lot older, and we just got a lot slower. Now how do we beat Chicago?
On Pittsburgh slower. Pittsburgh wasn't slower. Pittsburgh was soft. They were afraid to go in front of the net. That was the problem. And this team doesn't have that issue, right? So that was the problem with Pittsburgh. Not that they were slow. They were soft. And guess what? Chris Letang, who I voted for the Norris, right, is not a great defenseman on the back end, right? That was the problem with Pittsburgh, not speed. Although John goes, let's go back to the game, the goal that eliminated the Kings in this playoff series was all about speed. Slava pinched, he missed it. Kane flew down, tased him with a great pass. That's what beat him. So yeah, speed, but Pittsburgh was soft, and this team isn't soft. So, and I'd like to see, and look, there's got to be a component that how many jerseys do they sell with 12 Iginla here, right? I think there's a star component to this team, because last time I checked, Dean loves stars. He traded for Jeff Carter and Mike Richards. Why wouldn't he go try to go get Jerome Iginla?
I don't know if he's the fit, though. I don't know if he's the fit.
26 years old.
Iginla
is what, 40?
I think there's also something to be said for what are the options? Because Okay, so what do they need? They need a super fast, super young, high-scoring left wing. Oh, they can only make a couple $1 million. Where is that player? He doesn't exist right now. So you have to look at the options, and that's the trade-off. You want Matt Fratton playing as your second-line left wing, or would you trade Justin Williams, move to Foley there, and then plug in Iginla? I think that's a deal that makes sense. But there aren't a lot of other deals out there that make sense for the Kings right now. Sorry, Vinny Lecavalier, Briere, and all these other names people are going to talk about? Come on.
You're talking about a team that won the Stanley Cup and then in a shortened season with tons of injuries made it to the Western Conference Finals, which is probably bringing back the bulk of its roster. There's a few tweaks here and there they have to figure out. You're talking about bringing back a stable roster and creating 3 question marks on it. And 3 big question marks, because top line you're saying, okay, Toffoli can play top line right wing with Kopitar and Brown. We don't know that. Could he? Possibly, but we don't know. Okay.
What do you not know? I'm just curious. Have
You can say that advanced stats are nonsense
I'm
all
not
you
talking
want.
about stats.
But no, I am.
If you're not. You've watched hockey for 20 years. You saw Brown and Williams this year, and you saw them in the playoffs. What did you not see?
Kopitar, Brown, and Williams have a chemistry, they have a familiarity, and they dominate puck possession. I don't know if changing that line changes that. I just don't. Williams has been the top puck possession player in the league for like the past 5 years, except for Datsun. Now, you can dismiss that all you want. It's important. So you get rid of Williams, you bring in Toffoli. Does Toffoli do the things Williams does? I don't know. Does he have a great shot? Yes. Does he score goals? Yes. I don't know. I'm not worried about the Kings scoring goals. I'm worried about the Kings being the Kings. Toffoli comes in, I don't know.
So you're not worried about the Kings scoring goals, you're worried about that?
No, because the current lineup scores goals, John. If you get rid of Williams...
Not enough. They didn't score enough to win a division.
Not in the playoffs, they didn't. That was Kopitar.
During the regular season, they didn't win the division.
They scored fine.
They were still
in the regular
10th in
season.
scoring.
Thank you, Keith. So the second line, now you're bringing in Iginla to play left wing with Richards and Carter. Does that make that line better? I don't know.
Yes.
Carter scored 25 goals last season, and Mike Richards led the team in the scoring.
Wait a
That
second.
line's fine.
If
So
you
you're creating
keep-
another question.
Well, you keep saying no move Williams. Who's your left wing on the second line?
I have no idea. That's
Dustin.
one question mark versus
They got come up with a solution. Don't say don't trade Williams, but I got nobody in the left wing.
What about
But they didn't have anybody on
Tanner
last
Pearson?
year.
What
But
about
they
Tanner
didn't get to the
Pearson?
finals. They
Okay,
didn't
not
beat
ready?
Chicago
Yeah,
like that.
here's the thing with Tanner Pearson. That's
Just
a
a
great
thought.
question. No, it is a thought, and it would be a gamble. It would be a question mark. But the thing that a lot of
He goes
people
through a full training camp.
Yeah, the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that Tanner Pearson and Tyler Toffoli are the same age. They were drafted several years apart, but Pearson was an overager. They're only separated by 4 months, on their, I guess, their driver's license. So they're the same age. Toffoli did have that full year, of pro playing. Pearson was out a little bit last year. Could it work? It could work, and it's an option, and it's an option they might be forced into. Maybe Iginla won't take that money, and maybe there's not another deal out there, and maybe, they're willing to give him a shot. And Tanner Pearson will absolutely play games for the LA Kings next season. Whether it's 82 games remains to be seen, but he will be in the lineup.
So Gann mentioned the name Dustin Brown. He'll be an unrestricted free agent following next season. Assuming he does want to resign with the Kings. What kind of money does Dean throw at him? What does it do for our salary cap situation, the mayor?
He won't ever be an unrestricted free agent. It's not gonna. It's not. He's not even gonna get to that point. He'll be re-signed here probably while you're watching these videos online.
How much? How much is Dustin Brown?
42 for 7.
I think it's a 6x6 deal. Dennis wants a little bit longer.
42-7. Won't take less.
So he's a $6 million player.
Look, he's a $6 million player, absolutely, but he's a $6 million player because of a number of factors. First of all, he's the face of the franchise, and we can get into a big philosophical debate about that, but he's the guy that when you go back to 2006, and Dean Lombardi came in, and he talked about getting players that were willing to put the tattoo of the franchise on their ass. He's the guy that was willing to do that. He was the guy that was the captain through the lean years on into the good years. He was the first guy to lift the Stanley Cup in this franchise's history. He is the face of the franchise. And when you look at his point production, I'll be glad to have the debate with anybody. He is a top-line player. When I hear these ridiculous comments and see them online, that he's a third-line player, it's so absurd. Dustin Brown is a top-line player in the National Hockey League. He is a rare breed. He is a true power forward. There aren't enough of them in the league. The Kings need production also at the left side, so absolutely he's worth $6 million.
And on top of that, we've heard so much criticism about him as a captain from people.
From the outside,
Exactly.
From the outside.
Everybody thinks
Nobody
he's a lousy captain because he's not the vocal type, and that's a crock of crap. It's not one of the tenets of leadership. Never has been. But you talk to people who are in that locker room, people on other teams. He has grown into becoming the quintessential captain. You know, and that's an.
He can captain my team any day of the week, twice on Sunday.
Exactly. And most of us here have covered the Kings since he came to this team, and we've watched him grow. And it's just been an incredible transformation from an 18-year-old to now. It's just been tremendous.
I know the play pretty well. Right. Wants to retire here.
Yep.
Right. Won't take less than 6 because of the last contract. I mean, right. And if he decided to go to UFA, how much do you think Tim Lewicki would pay him in Toronto?
But also, why should he take less than 6? Look at what a guy like Shane Doan. He's a lifer captain. Doesn't have a Stanley Cup. Look what he signed for.
The comparable is Mikko Koivu. If you do comps, and Koivu got 47 for 7. So I mean, and I agree with John. It's way more than the production. Plus, you have nothing on left wing other than him. Right. So
what's the valid argument, though? Is somebody going to try to make an argument that he's only worth $4 million? I'll laugh you out of the room. I'll laugh you out of the room. Okay? If they somehow find a way, because Dean, we all know Dean works magic. If they get him for 5.5, that's a bargain. If they have to pay 6.5 for some reason, that's on the high side. That's kind of the window for as far as I'm concerned. That's my opinion.
You're right.
It's 5.5 to 6.5 is kind of the window there. 6 is kind of probably where it settles out. Mm-hmm. He's not getting Corey Perry money. He's not getting Ryan Getzlaf money.
Nor does he want it.
Nor does he deserve it.
Somebody put that out there a couple weeks ago.
That's ridiculous. He knows that it's
6
not
per for a long term. He retires a King and go on to the next issue.
for 6.
Does he get a statue, John?
No statue.
Hey, why would the guy not get a statue?
First captain.
Tell me what other statue you're going to put out in front of Staples Center with the Kings jersey holding a Stanley Cup.
I'll say one
If it's
thing
not Dustin Brown, then that statue doesn't deserve to be there. Not yet. Maybe it's Drew Doughty. If he gets 5 cups, maybe it's Drew Doughty. But right now, it would be 23.
By the way, Jonathan Quick is the only one with the Kings tattoo on him. But
Throw that out there.
I've never seen Dustin Brown's rear, so there's a possibility. But you're right. On Richard's ribcage, he does have the LA logo. That's true.
But it's not just about the numbers with Dustin Brown, though. It's so those intangibles, like you talk about being, the more you know hockey, the more you appreciate what Dustin Brown does on the ice. Because it doesn't necessarily translate to the box sheet numbers.
All the principles Dean preached about when he came here, embodied in that player. So.
And that's why if you don't re-sign him, then there's an integrity issue there.
Yeah.
As far as
said
I'm
it
concerned.
before.
There's an integrity issue there. For the integrity of the franchise, you have to re-sign that player. But I know there's at least one dissenting opinion in the room. So rather than dominating that question,
Jesse Cohen?
Jesse weigh in with his opinion.
Well, I think this is a salary cap issue more than anything else. And the question is, how much is the cap going to go up? Because if you sign Brown to a 6-year, $6 million deal, it's entirely possible that 3 years from now, it's just as good a bargain as his current contract. So it's not that I don't think that he's a great captain. It's not that I don't think that the issue of maintaining a certain continuity and respect through the franchise is important. It's just how much is the cap going to go up and how quickly is it going to go up, and how many other
rumored
guys?
to go to $70 million. So
In which
that's
case,
$6 million right there.
In which case, I don't have a problem with $6 million a year, but I don't think that he's worth $6 million a year. I think he's earned $6 million a year, and I understand that's a really subtle distinction.
What's he worth then?
I think he's worth on an open free market throughout the league somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 million a year, because
29 other teams with lineup.
I understand. I understand, but let me ask. This is you know me, John, so you know I love my wacky analogies.
I can argue.
Sidney Crosby is worth more to Toronto than he is to Florida, right? He just is. He goes there. They sell more tickets. They sell more merchandise. They sell more, subscriptions.
Well, they really can't
to their
sell any more
channel.
tickets.
But they can raise the price. I'm saying to a franchise in Toronto, a player is worth more than another thing. So the notion that 29 other teams would pay Dustin Brown more than $4 million doesn't necessarily enter into it to me, because we're not talking about what somebody else would pay. We're talking about what we think he's worth.
So do you find that analogy semantically yours?
Yes, absolutely.
So Tyler Sagan's making 5.7. Dustin Brown's not worth more than Tyler Sagan.
I'm not, unfortunately, familiar enough with the Boston Bruins to be able to comment on that. Probably, but what Dustin Brown does for this team, I don't think is as important as what other players on it do. And if signing him to a 6-year, $6 million contract means losing other players, for example, Williams, I think Williams is more important than Brown. I think the things that Williams does that's more important aren't necessarily rewarded with contracts.
Hold on.
Just
So you're telling me that right now today, if a gun was put to Lombardi's head and he had to make a trade, for salary cap reasons.
Yeah.
You would rather trade Dustin Brown than Justin, assume they're both signed to 5-year deals at the same.
Who's making more than Dustin Brown?
But assume they're 5-year deals at the same amount of money. You'd rather trade Dustin Brown than Justin Williams.
Yes, I would.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Next question.
Next question, Chris.
All right, Kings fans, I hope you enjoyed the roundtable. There will be many more where that came from, so look forward to that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Special thanks to C-Nate, our KingsCast crew, Alex Kinkhoff. I'm Keith Kornelek.
And I'm Chris Kalzewski.
Thanks for watching Overtime by KingsCast.